Hey guys, happy Monday. This is my second time trying to do this video because I tend to talk really fast and I'm trying to slow myself down and collect my thoughts and make sure that I get everything together. But I have a couple other things in progress right now. I'm working on a lettering class and released a set of brushes for Procreate. Got some fun things going on. But I thought I would take a moment to just tell you guys and share like my nightmare client story. Everyone has one. We've all been there. Like you'll have that one client that makes you question everything about your career. And mine was early on in my career. Early enough that I was like, do I want to continue doing this? Do I want to work with people like this? I don't know. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. So early on in my career, I got an agent. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been a freelance illustrator for 8. But early on in my career, I managed to get with an agent who I parted ways with a few years later. And the benefit of an agent is like they will go to bat for you. They will back you up as long, if you're in the right, like they'll back you up. They'll play the mean person for your client so you can remain the happy little illustrator. And so I had this client come in, and I generally don't do work locally. And it's not because I don't want to do work locally, it's just the work I was getting contacted by people out of state, out of the country, across the seas. My agent's office, the main office was based in England, so like I generally got a lot of European clients. This client reaches out and they're like, hey, we really want to hire Shauna to do these menu boards, but we would really like to do an in-person meeting. And my agent was like, okay, that's cool. I'm sure she would love to do it. We can pull up a quote, but you should know, like, we generally don't, like, our artists don't really work in person. Generally, things are just done over the phone or via email because the projects aren't generally local. And they said, well, we really would like to have her do an in-person meeting. So at the time I was in Orlando, and if anyone knows Orlando, I lived in Maitland. Their office, or their place they were working on, their restaurant, was on iDrive. And on a good day, that's like a 30-ish minute drive. On a bad day, I think it took me an hour and a half to get there in traffic because they insisted the meeting be at like 5 p.m. So I got there on time. They were late. And we have this meeting. We agreed everything. Things look good. They know what they want. I can do what they want. We're good. And it was just a set of menu boards that were meant to look like chalk. I would do them digitally. They would get them printed. They'd hang them up in frames. Good to go. No questions asked. They'd provide everything for me. I write it out. I make it look pretty. So this project starts and I get all these, boards done. I don't quite remember the timelines. This was a good like 4 years ago, but we get all these boards done, and then it's like every day there's a new change. And generally when you're working with a client, you only give them like 2 changes. Sometimes you can, fudge it and give them like 3, just in case, just to be nice. If my client comes to me and it's something simple where it's just like, hey, can we adjust the color of this? Just, I need it a little darker. Fine. I don't put it under the main changes. Like a big change and the revisions are like big revisions, not, or like multiple in one, not just a simple like, hey, I just need this color darker before the final. That's it, Anyways, so I'm doing these changes every day, and it's like, move this over here, change this here, this price change. And every time I did this, I don't think they really understood that every time they did it, I had to redraw things. So I'd move things over, but if the price changed, I'd have to completely redraw the price. Or if they changed the name of what they were offering, I'd have to completely redraw that. So each of these changes, it would take a good 15 minutes for me to open the file because it was over a gigabyte. And then it would take another 30 minutes for me to do that, plus save it, then close it, or save out a JPEG that they could look at, and then go from there. Fast forward, we get closer to the end of the project, and they're still making these changes on a daily basis, and they're supposed to open like the following week. And so we finally get to the point where we get the project like 99% done. And at this point, we've been working on it for a good 3 months. So I get an email from the wife, and she says, hi Shauna, I'm so-and-so. I am co-owner of this restaurant. We need to get this project done, so I'm going to be your main contact from here on out. Which was kind of a red flag, but I was like, fine, okay, I get it. You want to get things done. We'll do it. I'll direct to you. And so she says, can we get on a call? So I get on a call with her, and it's her, my main contact, and myself. And on this 3-way call, we're going on and talking, and she's trying to kind of get a base of where we're at. But every time I tried to speak, she cut me off. And then the other guy, every time he spoke, he was mumbling. So every time I tried to speak up to say, hey, so-and-so, you're mumbling, I can't understand you, she'd cut me off. And it just became this incredibly frustrating phone call where by the end of it, it was probably very obvious in my voice that I was frustrated. And when I try to concentrate on things, like, all inflection in my voice goes away. That's just a bad habit I have. And it sometimes makes me sound kind of mean, and it's not a good thing. So my plan was, when I got off this phone call, I was going to send her an email after I took my dog out, because I had to just step away from the computer for a minute and just process everything. So the plan was step away from the computer, take the dog out, come upstairs 5 minutes later, send an email recapping everything, just to get clarification. I come back to my desk and I have an email from her, and it says, hey Shauna, I just had a quick question. Could you give me a call when you get a second? So I call her back. Now first, big mistake. I have a Google Voice number for my business because I don't have a separate phone. I just have my one phone. But I use a Google Voice number for my clients because I like having a little bit of a barrier. I don't want them to have direct contact with me at any point in the day. And I generally like to keep things on email as much as I can, because then I have a paper trail. I made the mistake where I didn't call out with my Google Voice number. I just called her because she's got a question. I'll handle it. I call her, and she gets on the phone and she goes, Shauna, I wanted you to know that you sounded incredibly angry on our call, and as my designer, you are required to work until I am happy. And I was like, whoa, hang on. You're getting paid, and as my designer, you are going to make sure that this is done, and you are going to work until I am happy. And I was like, what? And, and then she decided to, iterate and continue telling me how angry I looked on this call, or how angry I sounded on this call. And I was like, what is happening? What is going on? Now, should I have known at that point that that was a huge red flag? Yes. Was she a nice person? No. Fast forward, I'm very kind on the call. I say, I'm sorry if that was the case. So-and-so was mumbling, and I was trying to get him to speak clearer. If I came across angry, I'm sorry. I said, that's just my voice. I was trying to concentrate. All inflection goes out the window. It won't happen again. I make sure she's happy. And in the next 24 hours, I get 16 calls from her. 16. Each one, every time she had a little thought she wanted to call. I don't answer my phone all the time. Like, I don't like to if I don't have to. If I'm not expecting a call, I don't answer my phone. And so I get these calls from her, and I follow up with an email, and I just say, hey, if you would like to schedule a call, I'm happy to, but I'm currently with a client. I can't talk right now. And she'd go, well, let's talk in 5 minutes. And I'm like, that's not how this works. And so fast forward, the final call that she did, I was at the gym. It was like noon. And I get a call on my phone. I'm like, here we go. And it's a case of just email her. Just email her, tell her you're not available. So I write her an email and I say, hey, so-and-so, I'm currently with another client. I can't take your call right now. I'm happy to schedule a call later today. And she writes back, let's talk in 5 minutes. And I wrote back and I said, that's not how this works. I'm with another client right now until 4 p.m. I can talk after 4. And she goes, let's talk at 4. I'm like, great. So at this point, I bought myself about 3 hours to prepare myself for this woman. And To this day, I still don't know what was on that call. I don't remember what that call was, but I got on that call. And after that, I emailed my agent and I was just like, hey, I wanted to update you because she's kind of been crazy. She's called me 16 times in the last 24 hours. And yesterday on our call, she told me I sounded angry and she followed up with a call to tell me that I was angry. And my agent was like, oh my God. She goes, okay, in the future, don't ever worry about letting this get as far as it did. She goes, if a client starts calling you without your permission like that, tell us and we'll jump in ahead of time. She goes, second, I'll message her right now and tell her, like, this is the number, and if you need to call her, you schedule a call. And I was like, okay, thank goodness. So we get the project done. And again, the timeline's a little fuzzy. I can't remember if it was like the next day or like a week later. And I feel like it was probably a week later, but I digress. It doesn't matter. Send off all the files. Everything's done. Everything's approved. I'm done. I'd been up very late finishing everything for them. And so that morning I was like, I'm going to sleep in. I'm doing no work today. Like, this has been constant for weeks. I'm going to just sit back and I'm going to take the morning really slow. So I wake up and it's like 8:55-ish and I look and my phone is ringing. I'm like, no. And I look and it's her. And at that point, thankfully, she was calling my Google Voice number. So, like, when you have a Google Voice number, it will transcribe your voicemail, which is great. So it went right to my email. And it said, hello, Shauna, this is so-and-so. You need to come into the office right now because we put the boards up and they look awful. And you need to come and you need to fix this now. Excuse me? Excuse me? No, I don't. I don't need to go into the office. I don't need to fix this. You approved everything. So, and like, thinking about this, I still remember the panic I had when I read that email and I forwarded it to my agent. I was like, it's not even 9 a.m. Can you please take care of this? So she calls her and she goes, so-and-so, what's going on? And so the client calls, or the client answers, and she explains to her that, like, all the boards look terrible, the blah, 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 blah. The boards didn't look terrible. What happened is no one along the line told me that the frames got nixed. So they were just boards, and they were all right up against each other. No one iterated this to me along the way. So had I known that, I could have made a change along the way and said, you know what, if these are going to be right next to each other, maybe we shouldn't use different lettering styles for the headers. Maybe we should make them all a little more cohesive. But no one told me that. At that point, they were separate frames, so they were separate entities. And everything, again, got approved through that point. So my agent explained to her, like, listen, one, she doesn't have to go into the office. None of our artists do that. Two, everything in this project was approved through this point. Everything got approved. She went above and beyond what she was doing because this woman was threatening not to pay. She was threatening not to pay the fee, and this project was about $13,000, which at the time, it's still a lot to me, don't get me wrong. At the time, like, that was like immense for me. And she was threatening not to pay, and I was like, I did all this work, and I did way more work than I was required to do, and you don't want me to, what? You're paying me. So my agent calls me, and she's like, it's just easier to call you than try to email this, and she's like, she wanted to come into the office, and she goes, I told her no. I said, thank goodness. She goes, we agreed to have you make revisions to the boards. She's going to send pictures. And we'll make changes, and we're going to charge her extra. We told her it's going to cost extra to do this because you met every part of this project. You went above and beyond, and the contract was signed, so you're getting paid. And I said, thank you for taking care of this. So we get these, and I get the photos, and they don't look great because, again, no one iterated to me that something had changed along the way. So I was doing it based off what we learned in January, not in March. So we get these, I get these and I say, okay, I'm happy to make them. We'll make them all cohesive. Let's do that. Because like all the type in the, like all the lettering for the menus themselves, that was cohesive. It was just the menu titles. And so we ended up ultimately, like, we did them. I did the change. She was like, I don't like it. And so the guy that my contact was just like, can you just send me the files? I'll just put a title on it myself. And I was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. They use Zepfino, so I'm a little offended. But anyways, yeah, so I did get paid. And I vowed never to work with that restaurant again. And frankly, I don't even know if they're still around. I'm curious if they survived COVID. I feel like they probably didn't, because I don't think they lasted very long in that on iDrive, but I don't know. But I guess like the moral of the story is like, if you don't have an agent, like you really have to focus on standing up for yourself. And nowadays I do not have an agent, and I'm at a point where I could stand up for myself if I needed to, but early on in my career, I would have not known how to handle something like that. Like, I want my clients to be happy, but that client really took the cake for the worst client I've ever worked with. And I have been very fortunate in my career to have some really awesome clients, but never again will I work with someone like that. And if something like that were to happen again, that would be a case where I would end up killing the project and I would cancel the contract and just say this isn't going to work out. But I'm at a point now where I can sort of figure out early on in our calls whether or not the person's going to be really like demanding or if they're going to be pretty chill with the process. One of the things that she didn't seem to understand was the fact that like I was not her designer. I was an illustrator. I was hired. I did not work for her. I was a contract worker. And in her mind, I was her full-time employee, which is why she was demanding that I will work until she is happy. So my agent did thankfully take time to explain, she's not your employee. She's an illustrator. She's not your designer. You're lucky she's laying all this out for you and providing you the files, because generally we don't do that. So my agent went to bat for me big time. Thank you. You know, if you're watching, if my former agent's watching, like, thank you. I'm still so thankful that you did that. But this client was just, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And I could tell that her employees were like terrified of her, because the way he talked, the way that the main contact I had talked when she was on the phone was very clear that he had his tail between his legs and he was terrified. So it was a very rough call. Yeah, so thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my story. This was hopefully a wild ride from start to finish. It was certainly certainly a wild ride in my life, so yay. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye!